Welcome. I'm Anna Leahy from the Department of English. I'm grateful for their support of this poetry reading series and the larger project Tabula Poetica, Poetry at Chapman University. The Visiting Poets books are available at both campus bookstores, and I believe there are copies for purchase this evening, and Max Greenstreet will be in charge of that. So if you don't have a copy and you would like to purchase one, see Max after the reading. I want to thank Professor Logan Esdale, my colleague in the English department, who is here in the near front row, for helping me with this poetry reading series. Laura Odell is the designer of our flyer and of the souvenirs for each individual poet's events. In addition, 2 graduate students share an assistantship with Tabula Poetica. Natalie Delverne and Kathy Tafola helped plan this poetry reading series and host the Visiting Poets, and they are developing other poetry projects, and Natalie is sort of behind Professor Esdale. Let's give a round of applause to Logan Esdale and Natalie Delverne. Also, the department assistants, Lacey Briley and Jennifer Klunk, have been crucial to the success of this series. The stipend for each poet is partially supported by Poets and Writers, Inc. through a grant it has received from the James Irvine Foundation. This year, we are partnering with Leatherby Libraries. We are grateful for use of the Henley Room for evening events and for the support of Charlene Baldwin, Dean of Leatherby Libraries, and the whole library staff here. Our last visiting writer, Lynn Din, will be on campus next Tuesday. The poetry talk is at 1 p.m. in Argyris Forum 209C, and the poetry reading is at 5:30 here in the Henley Room. This evening, we welcome Kate Greenstreet, who is the author of the full-length collections The Last 4 Things and Case Sensitive, as well as 3 chapbooks. She is a painter and graphic designer hailing from New Jersey and is a master of the Poetry Book Tour. In hiatus now, her blog includes an array of interviews with first book poets, which I recommend especially to our poetry students here at Chapman. One of the reasons I'm really pleased to have Kate Greenstreet here is that hearing her read from her earlier collection, Case Sensitive, a few years ago, gave me a new approach to her poems. Her voice adjusted my understanding. What initially fascinated me were the fragmentation and possibilities of layering, including layers drawn from what that book's character was reading. As I heard the poems in the poet's voice, a sometimes haunting, sometimes funny, sometimes matter-of-fact voice, I became more fascinated by the connections, the shifting tone and attitude of a speaker, and the way reading becomes us, both in shaping and suiting our ideas. The Last 4 Things has commonalities with Case Sensitive, particularly because the voice and tone work deftly in both collections, and because Greenstreet resists explanation, trusting narrative that doesn't depend on exposition. The poetry can be quirky, darkly funny, as in, "The world was ending and everybody knew. We lined up to say goodbye." The poetry is often spare, with white space shaping the poems and the pace of the collection. Unlike Case Sensitive, there are no notes to explain, fill out context, or attribute in The Last 4 Things, and it includes a DVD, a bonus if you need to purchase a book. This book implores the camera, body parts, fire, rain, and the sea. The reader can't be sure what's coming next, but when the next thing, an image, a line, arrives, it makes its own sense through the voice. We trust it and must continue. This quality makes The Last 4 Things an intimate read, while at the same time making us aware that part of the story is buried, that we cannot know each other, or perhaps even ourselves fully at any given moment. And yet we know or sense a great deal. This was a book I couldn't stop reading, even though I, perhaps like the speaker, couldn't have guessed exactly where I'd end up or how I might get there. Please welcome Kate Greenstreet.
Thanks, Anna. That was really nice. Very nice introduction. Okay. So are we starting a little late? I'm sure it would be my fault. So I'll just sort of adjust that. Is there like a time that we need to be out of this room so that I can... Okay. All right. Well, yeah, I did. I did oversleep. That's true. But I'm not sure if I should admit that or not. But now I already have, so it's too late. And you know, I've been on tour and I've been doing this for like 47 days, so I'm sure that I should be able to do this tonight. So you'll have to let me know if it all works out. And I trust you to do that for me. I was going to drive a train across the country, and then a ship across the sea. She came to see me off. It was a little caboose that I was driving. She asked me what was wrong. I told her that I'd had a dream. The ship was going to sink. She said, "Remember when you were a boy and we used to do the magic of believing?" 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. The laundromat's closed. The last warm night of October. A few crickets. The last ferry comes in so slowly. The fortune teller climbs up a ladder with a roller in her hand and a hot pink shirt. She seems young to know so much. The door is open. She's been painting the inside of her place bright white. The outside of the storefront they did last week, a surprising golden ochre. The streets are dark. One open restaurant, empty. Ropes slapping hollow metal masts, occasionally. Not much wind. What's the appeal of a mystery? Someone is looking for something. Actively. Two of Swords. There's always that moment with people, right? You look back. You can't believe how they just don't love you. And how, in the minute before that, you didn't know. There was a place near water. The people had come from somewhere else and settled. How we came to exist. How we came to be here, everywhere at once. How could I say nothing? Well, it's a long walk ahead. For a long time, I didn't know. And it's all just another story about how life could be. A psychic told me once I had the mind of a nun, as if there would be only one kind for nuns. The offices of seers we consulted in the South sometimes had chickens. The vestibules were swimming with the poor, bobbing, drowning in our lake of dreams and wishes. Tell me everything you want to do while there's still time. Keep in touch. Think about the leaves and the birds and branches. Think about the words, big picture. The big picture. For a long time, I didn't know what to say. And of course, I didn't want to say it. When everything depends, has always depended on acting like nothing is wrong. Fruit trees blooming in the blood-drenched ground, a ringing phone. It's what we're in the middle of. If we realize the extent to which no one understands what anybody else really means by anything they say, well, you say we'd all go crazy. But aren't we crazy already? With trying and pretending and being mad about it. I mean angry. There was a place near water. How we all came to be. Everywhere at once. My prayer is changing. Dusting for prints. The subject is distant from and dark. The subject is seen through glass. The subject reflects, or has a luminous body. If you feel you can no longer pray, care less. Don't be selfish. Was he an artist? I remember him cutting a sword out of wood and painting it gold. Arms seems wrong. It's their nearness. Sometimes it's you, and I'm calling to you, but I say the wrong name. Several glass ashtrays, the panther lamp, the light bent toward the map. I spent a long time under the table, learning to recognize wires, how he would change her, how the bullet is scraped as it moves through the barrel. The subject is distant and dark. Each instance has its reward. Sex can't explain it. Their goal is to empty themselves. If you feel you can no longer pray, personally, I like trees, birds. Personal and unintelligible, my addiction bores me. We still need spoons, plates, and knives, bowls, your star sign. Those weeks with you, I remember driving you somewhere, and it was snowy. Nothing was figured out. You said redemption looked like a painting of fire after a fire. I thought I'd read a little bit from a couple of different books because, like Neil Young says, it's all one song. To begin a journey. He set out, depart, to prove his point, to set one's mind at rest. There's a hole in the middle of life, the body. The flashbacks will remind us. Set down, to write, or copy, to consider, to humiliate, or humble. Set down in heavy fog. To cause to pass into the given, to set a prisoner free. I was myself, to join what had been separate, to translate without moving, foliate. Your blonde guitar, my plaster Buddha, 500 pounds of perfect pitch. Each tone, each color has a different vibration. Everything was getting darker, dimensional. A woman came here once and fell to her knees. It was a Sunday. I'll never forget it. In those days, I was very small. I knew my own grief, to be so small. Nobody could find it. In winter, just the pilings, ropes, ice, and black water, as seen. All these shots are locked down. I can manage when the pressure is steady. Packed with dark tent chemical boxes and the camera, an umbrella, a lamp. We talked about colors so much. Or sometimes I feel that the life is there, waiting. But I don't have the part. I know that everything can't be important. They let me take down the curtains. Everything is slightly hidden from me, all the time. It's dark. Did you sleep? Someone's yelling out there. Have I run out of luck? It's dark. That always takes me back. Rereading our old mail. I have to try, don't I? When he asked me about having a secret, I thought it was just a form of greeting. Comes up kind of fast would be a reason to shrink from it. Dead is deadly. Holding the glass, the parenthesis means something to me. But so do the phases of the moon. What does it mean to be inside the world? The feeling that the room is open at the top. This white is my cross, as yours is black. Look up. What does it mean to be defeated? You step from your skin, I'll drop my skirts and take your hairy coat upon my back. As it fell, I thought, prayed, maybe it won't break. Loss of voice, shattered glass, and our cuffs. The river cracked. Time isn't where it was. They're not people. killing monkey people. They all look like me. I was supposed to raise the water. But is it wrong? If we let them, they'll replace us, the fittest. The tendency toward conflict with strangers, and that feeling when you're carrying eggs for everybody, and they always want to give you that extra half box. Then aliens come and take our planet and eat our food and talk the whole time about the better food they had on other planets. The big glass frame is worth something. Are they traveling together? Are we traveling? We used to work until the chemicals were actually exhausted. What is faith but a picture that we carry, where the memories of everyone are stored? A stair is missing. Let us know our end. Let us know our end and the number of our days. This is how he talks to me, a tree losing its leaves. If water covers the road. It's something about living on a former Air Force base in winter in the desert after they've all gone. You can't help thinking of them during the days, going out or coming back, waiting. The soldiers, they're everywhere, and mostly I don't know their names. I asked a man in the hardware store for help. The only thing you want to remember, he said, about the dead, is that the bottom of everything is theirs. The bottom of the river, the bottom of every drawer. If water should cover the road, the bottom of that puddle belongs to them. We're in the midst of letting go, knot by knot, finger by finger, becoming one of the 3 or 4 people we might have been. You can't always walk away. You can think about it, he said, but don't believe in it. On the earth, or what he means under the sky. I want you to see me. A crime had turned me into a phone. I tried to get sympathy from Michael, but he thought it was funny. It hurt to laugh, but I had to. My receiver was transparent. I kept saying, but Mike, I'm a phone. I was still a person, in a way. I still had my legs. It was on the level of having a terrible deformity, or only one purpose, and not one I chose. I wanted him to care, but he was being so Mike. There was a flag, or something patriotic on me, imprinted near the dial. Red and blue, and the white of my transparency. I couldn't even be a regular phone. I read that poem a year or so ago in Philadelphia, and I was introduced after the reading to the first Spanish translator of Wallace Stevens, and his very beautiful daughter introduced us. He didn't have that much English vocally, but I guess he could read it or whatever, and. But anyway, she was just, so fabulous and beautiful and kind. And then she came up to me afterwards, after a lot of time had passed, and she said to me, I just wanted to tell you that sometimes I really feel like that phone. Which amazed me, you wouldn't think that a person like that would feel like that, but it is a true story, and so it has truth even for the beautiful among us. Apparently. First, I was setting fire to the house, but we didn't want the authorities to know. So I was setting small fires, setting the blue rug in the living room on fire in several spots. I asked my mother, should we try to save anything? We can begin with the projection. What would illustrations of the inner life tell? It was forbidden, but there was no wall. The river flowed out of the garden and divided into four, meaning rapid or sudden, broad, bursting forth and fruitful, possibly through floods and winter rains. We were fighting for the chimney field. It's a landmark. You know how people are. Separate the river from the blood, where the gate first split from the Latin, meaning go away, because people have been burned for having views. There within, I was seeing from a distance. It stayed small for quite a while. Safe home. The subject admitted at that time observation, stress apparent, flutter in the attic walls, morgue-type gurney at the scene. They only want a peaceful life, can enter anywhere, soft skulls, palm prints. Post-traumatic stated that the subject cannot lift off, heroin, cocaine, marijuana, further history unknown, unresponsive, marital status unknown, in the third part of the night, weightless, not straight up, became unresponsive, swooping, without success, open hinges, must fall to glide, glide to rise. The last time well, not the very last time I was with Anna, because we were just together in Santa Cruz the other night, but when I visited her class in Naperville. That's right. That was it. I was in the middle of a tour, and I was doing this experiment with this poem, and I thought I might try it again tonight, just for fun, and, for my further edification, where I'd read the poem first without any explanation. Then I would tell the background of the poem. Then I would read it again, and then I would get people to vote on whether they liked it better before the story or background, or after, or with both. And partly I'm doing this again tonight because I've got this DVD with my book, and I just have this question about whether or not it's good to put extra or a layer, an extra layer of narrative or explanation or images, whether it's good to attach that to a poem or not. So I'll tell you the little background story on this. My younger brother, died a few years ago on the street in the Mission District in San Francisco. And we got the coroner's report in the mail right at the same time that we had bats in our house upstairs. And I discovered this bat flying around in the bedroom. And I really, I just didn't even know what it was, because I don't know if you've ever seen a bat in a building. It's a very strange thing. It's almost weightless. I mean, it's not like a real thing. It's almost like a messenger from the beyond, and it's pretty freaky. And so, I closed the door, of course, and stuck a towel. I guess I was thinking sort of clearly. I ran and got a towel from the bathroom, stuck it under the door, and then I called this guy in the Yellow Pages, one of the many pest control places that claim to be able to get rid of whatever it is you don't want in your house. And They said, oh, yeah, you know, it was 7 o'clock. And they said, oh, yeah, he'll be right over. And so we just sat and waited because we were so freaked out. You know, we're such, you know, babies. But what could you do? I mean, you couldn't really try to fight it, you know? I didn't know what to do. And so anyway, at 5 o'clock in the morning, the guy shows up. He's in a mood, basically. You know, we thought we were in a mood until we met him. And, you know, he's just been chasing bats all over the neighborhood and, you know, wants some coffee, wants some toast, wants to sit down and tell us all about what a tough life he's got, making I don't know how many hundreds of dollars an hour. And so he did have some coffee and some toast, and he sat down and told us about bats, which was actually extremely interesting to me. I didn't know anything about them. And one of the main things that interested me about it was this, I think, very famous fact about bats, that they can't actually fly. They have to fall, and then they can lift and glide. But unless they fall from a high place, they can't take off, basically. So the poem was made from fragments of the stuff that this guy told us about bats, and also fragments from the coroner's report, because they did seem to have some relationship. And so now I'll read the poem again. It's called Safe Home, which I suppose I wouldn't really need to tell you. It has a little bit of a double meaning, you know, safe home, like safe from pests, but also I just wish that my brother could finally find a safe home somewhere. I should never tell that part. I actually broke down and cried telling this thing at this crazy place that I visited in Vermont. If any of you are poets who are travel around, an interesting place to visit would be, you mentioned it, I can't remember the town, but it's something like Vergennes, Vermont. And when you go there, what it is you walk a mile or a mile and a half into the woods. And in the woods itself, there are these, you know, maybe like 4 or 5 lean-tos, like with a tarp. I mean, presumably they maybe put another tarp over the other side in the dead of winter when they actually still have this school. And it's a real high school. I mean, it's an accredited high school, and there's like maybe 16 kids. What'd you say? 16, 17 kids? And this one teacher who was just, you know, a great guy and kind of a nut, obviously, and it's his thing. And so I just went there, you know, and they had like a roaring fire. It was, you know, September. It was warm, but it was very cold in the very deep woods of this place. And they walk in there every day in the winter. I mean, you know, it's Vermont. It snows. It's icy and everything, but that's part of the thing. Anyway, if you want to know more about that, you can ask me about it after, and I can give you the guy's name. They read poetry every day in this high school. I think that's pretty cool. Safe home. The subject admitted at that time, observation, stress apparent, flutter in the attic walls. Morgue type gurney at the scene. They only want a peaceful life, can enter anywhere. Soft skulls, palm prints. Post-traumatic stated that the subject cannot lift off. Heroin, cocaine, marijuana. Further history unknown. Unresponsive. Marital status unknown. In the third part of the night. Weightless. Not straight up. Became unresponsive, swooping. Without success. Open hinges. Must fall to glide. Glide to rise. Okay, so now we're at the voting part. So, just to I can't, you know, I must be getting to this age because I keep losing words. It's sort of like, just to what? Not to please me, but to, I don't know. just to, God. You know, when a poet, imagine how sad it was for Oppen. I mean, this is something that really kills me and something that I think about a lot. When he just lost his ability to think. Well, that hasn't happened to me yet, exactly. Anyway, let's have a vote on this. How many people like it better when it's just a poem with no explanation, no extra, nothing attached to it? Anybody? Okay, yeah. And you? 3. 3. And how many people like it better with the story? And how many people like it better, like, with the whole thing? And you don't like it at all. Is that the point? Okay, right. All right, so I'll just figure that anybody who hasn't raised their hand, they like it both ways. I'm going to take it, I'll try to take it as, like a compliment or something. Okay. Well, thank you for indulging me. I think that was the word I was looking for. Indulge me. Okay. 10 December. Did he spit on the floor? Sometimes I didn't wash for days, and things just lying there where I left them, like the moon, like the trash on the moon. Please come and take me out of here. Hasn't eaten. Maps for everywhere. 29 December. I like a big ship. Ships. They're great. They're giant. Large ships. Not like sailboats. Oh no. There's no sails. No. Powered by a motor or, I don't know, whatever they used to do. Not sails. But they're not modern. They're big. You steer them with a giant wheel. That's all I know. And you have the urge to steer one. Yeah, I do. With a giant wheel. I'd just be there. I'd be a little small compared to the wheel, and I'd be steering it. It'd be great. There'd be a big map. A map with stars on it. We would navigate by the stars. The stars would be very bright. That's how we'd know where we were. Would you have a crew? They would be below. The ship is white, mainly white. It has some blue. It's at sea, of course. Just water everywhere. At night, with the stars, you'd be steering your ship. At night would be the main time. How about being on the shore when somebody else is on the ship? I wouldn't do that again. What you feel watching someone be lost for a while. To bear a light for a person on a dark street. To set one's dog on a stranger. But, you see, I am very old. And there were eyes in the wall. I am not a magnetic. Surely not. For my sight dispersed. If we haven't beauty, or wealth, or even goodness to save us, be brave, but say there was a fire. We should not shamelessly trample upon one another. I said, he's my brother. I don't know why I would have said that. January. Do a dangerous thing and you're in danger. That's how it works. I was a child, and he was my young uncle. It's too close, too deep. We could make a life. Fuck tripods, family, humans. We could make a life, a room. The red goes black very quickly. We all plugged in. We see his maleness now, thin as water. 100 shadows on the platform. Trespass? A question to offer. Are signs adequate? Drinking water adequate? Restrooms operational? Parking adequate? How many rockets fell on the city today? We come down from the mountains. Yellow trees, green trees, swift river. Farmlands, warm rain. People travel with us. Machines that mine imaginary gold. January 15. He's crossing near the cut point. Fortuity, take note of the values around you. They're burying the suit. At home, they've reorganized the kitchen. That means stories. We know the plot already. But even if we could go back, we couldn't live in that light, the previous light. To fit as words to music, a spell, a round, a turn, a quarrel. What led? Is it fog? Something between us and the world. A turn, a mordant, a melodic argument, a flag climbing in the hard black shoes, dragging a stone, the transition, alms. That's when I found out my insurance was worthless. Life had other qualities. Because people disappear from the earth. A green we did in 7 values. Some days I expect you. Sometimes it's a limited depth of field that you want. Truth, facts, the true story, the real picture. Why do we hate? Sure. Dear friend, I can believe in the influence of Mars as fully as I can in the aorta. It's all invisible in a normal day, though felt as rhythm or excitement or pressure. You have the plate you can't drink from. And that one's missing an arm. And making art, too, is a kind of disappearing. A bucket with holes on purpose. January 17. I'm no expert on fire. How it smells depends on what burns. People say it, but they don't know what it means. Grease the wheels. This morning, as I fit the leader in the spool, I could feel it was the last time. The role of Ilford was a little past its date. The familiar motion of advancing the film. I feel I should be able to recognize the future. I thought I'd make use of all the lenses today. 18 January. Using an old man's camera, I assumed it was a temporary thing for me. But his camera became my camera then, for years. And if it turned you into an observer, what should the life of an artist be like? Pining behind shields, sleeping with the lights on, the white dress rotting in safekeeping. She must be able to offer help to others, puts her hands to the pain. I worked, I vow, I want an individual, this hapless window, and yet another minute of your time. When you're out reading, one of the things you try to do is tell a couple little stories or some talk to the audience. I could just stand up here and just read these poems, and that might work for a few people, but if you don't actually make a connection, it doesn't seem to work that well. But the trouble with it is you get a couple of stories that you sort of like, but after you tell them 3 times, you just feel like an idiot if you try to tell them again. So I was just thinking, should I say that thing about Emily Dickinson's dress or not? So I think I won't, because I said it in front of Anna the other night, and now I don't think I can. So that's just a little bit of background on being a poet who's out on the road. And just, if you're a poet, you're not necessarily that good at, thinking of, fun things to say in between. So I don't know. I'm still learning. I'm going to tell you about the dress anyway. So, we went to Emily Dickinson's house. Max and I went to Emily Dickinson's house. And, it's just a house. It's kind of disappointing. Has anybody been there? Yeah. So, it's kind of cool because it's Emily Dickinson's house, but it's just a house. And then you go in, and you're walking around, and then you go upstairs. I don't know how recently you were there, but apparently they used to have the real dress. Was it that long ago? Awesome. Well, when I went there, they did not have the real dress. They had a replica on a dressmaker's dummy behind glass. And they said, it was just like the real dress, but it wasn't the real dress. And it turns out that the real dress is rotting in safekeeping. And, it just made me wonder, what's the point? I mean, if it's going to rot, let's just see it rot. I'd be into that. I don't really need to see the perfectly pure replica because, I'd rather see the rotting real thing. But anyway, so it was behind the glass. And so in order to get up near, you have to kind of pretend you're not really getting over there, right next to the glass, just to kind of put yourself next to it. But I really wanted to get as close as I could, and when I did, I just thought, she's not so big. And that was a funny thing. It was like she was just almost my same size. Like I could have put on that dress. But, of course, I didn't try that. I didn't try, breaking the glass and stealing the replica dress. If I was going to do anything that crazy, I would have tried to steal the rotting real one, wherever it is, which I probably could have found out because we did get a very chatty person there who was telling us a lot of stuff that apparently she wasn't supposed to tell us. In calling, get ready. Dear, there is a bridge between the middle and the end, designed by winds, caused to flex. Fate includes both falling to another level, as in falling from windows, stairs, or ladders, and same-level falls, such as slipping or stumbling. But remember when I asked if you were carrying an umbrella, and I asked you what you felt, and I think there was a blind person sitting near you. It's very strange not to be writing, not even to be drawn to it. A lot of time just at the piano, an old upright that came with the house. Just some old pieces I knew once, but I feel it quickens me. Some keys don't strike fully, and the surfaces are curling. They don't use ivory anymore. What I wanted, it wasn't for remembering. A broken liquid, like blood. The next, with the description of how big it really is. Dear friend, don't be from the past. Once we went under a tree to get out of the rain, a thick tree. We waited there a while. That day, I don't think anybody cried. Later, walking down the road, I still have the knife in my hand, but now it isn't made of gold. Punctuation's a resemblance question. Latent, suppressed, subliminal, sleeping. Sometimes there's a word that can't be used. Dormant, inherent, instinctive, involuntary. Listen, keep in touch. I know you won't. The most vulnerable moment is the moment of the change. 4 frames hold the strip to the light, the higher plane. Release the shutter, what I wanted from a picture. My wish is, I see now, that mesh must be as strong as bullets. For reducing the speed, distributing the light of a lamp, there within, their second. You see a building cut in half, its rooms exposed. How vulnerable a building is, how simply cut away. Born on this earth, we're all alone tonight. The sphere of mortal life, the fruiting spike, the ear. Stand there. I'll take your photograph. Thanks. Question?
In Edgar Allan Poe's theory of composition, he says that what we think of lengthier poems are just small poems that are strung together. And when I was reading The Last Four Things, I was so struck by the fact that so many of these small sections do stand alone. And the lack of titles throughout, obviously, and the putting it as one poem, still I was reading a lot of them as separate poems. So I'm wondering, in your process, how you wrote this poem, I guess, how you strung those sections together.
Repeatedly. I wrote that first section of the book, which I do think of as one poem, over the course of 3 years. So I would put it up on my studio wall, you know, and at its longest it was 100 pages, 100 big pages. You can imagine how bad it was at that point. And so I just continually wrote it and wrote it and wrote it until it just started to disappear, which was what I hoped it would do, just kind of disappear to me. And then I reordered it a lot, and I tested it, you know, with saying it. And finally I came to that order, and I thought it was right, even though I really do, you know, I switch it up all the time when I read, and I do think of it as being like little blocks of wood. I think I said this earlier, that you can just make different shapes out of. But for a book, you have to choose. You have to say, this is. I think I'm gonna go with this one. I'm gonna say this is the poem, and I took quite a long time to do it. The second part of the book, I wrote in 56 days, literally. The title is true, in that sense. Does that answer, though? Yeah. But it is fragmented, and it kind of needs to be. I had a dream of writing a book-length poem that was just, you know, it would the pages would be full, and I would be, you know, the greatest poet. But, you know, I just couldn't do it. And maybe someday. I don't know. Probably not. Anybody else?
Since we have so many burgeoning poets
Uh-huh.
and scholars here, can you talk a little bit about your influences, or who you think that the generations after you should be reading now?
Yeah, the generations after me, that's practically here. If I think about people who are actually my age, you know, that have been working for a long time in this vein, unlike me, I mean, well, I think C.D. Wright is somebody that everybody can enjoy, you know, because she's straddling the camps of poetry, I think. So I think she's a good person to read. I think Anne Carson is a good person to read. People, you know, we're just people. People's work is uneven, you know, and possibly even the things that I would like the best wouldn't be the things that they would like the best. But I really love this book, Imminent Visitor, it's selected poems by Jaime Sanz, which is translated by Forrest Gander and Kent Johnson. A lot of people don't know this book, and so I always want to mention it because it's a book that I really love, and it's a book that I read out loud to myself a lot. And I think it's a great book for students because it's, you know, it's got a lot of sex, it's got a lot of anger, it's got a lot of music, and it's powerful and it's fun and it's over the top. It's just too much, but who cares, you know? Because it's great. So I would say even more than anything, I recommend Imminent Visitor. You know, I read everything, and I like so many different kinds of poetry.
You brought up the camps, the poetry camps.
The poetry camps is quite a sad situation.
In a camp?
No, and that's my problem. That's why people want to snipe at me from both sides. Like, but they can't get me. Not yet. You know, I don't want to be in a camp. That's the thing. I like lots of different kinds of things, and also even stuff I don't like, even stuff which I wouldn't say I don't like, even stuff that I don't feel compelled to read. I also don't feel compelled to just say that person is a dope because, you know, they're writing a narrative poem or something. I feel like poets have more in common with each other than they do with most people on earth, no matter what kind of poetry they're writing. Now, I could be wrong about that because I am a little new, but that's my position. That's the position I've chosen to take. And there are camps, and you do find that out when you're out. And that's too bad. It's too bad that people, they feel like they just have to, they got a hold to it. They got a position. But I have a position too, and that's my position. That I don't want to. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Are you having another